One beloved children's star hid his truth inside the brightest playhouse on television. One sitcom father gave America comfort while his final record told a more complicated story. Another comedian turned every wink into camouflage, and one gentle voice became part of Marlon Brando's grief for more than 30 years. Tonight, the laughter still sounds familiar, but the private lives behind it feel very different. Before we begin, comment where you are watching from and what time it is now. Paul Reubens. Paul Reubens belongs first because his story reached viewers again through his own voice. To millions, he was Pee Wee Herman, the bow-tied burst of wonder from Pee Wee's Big Adventure and Pee Wee's Playhouse, the CBS series that turned a surreal little world into Saturday morning comfort from 1986 to 1990. Children saw joy. Adults now see a carefully built hiding place. In the 2025 documentary Pee Wee as Himself, directed by Matt Wolf and released after Reubens had passed away, he described being secretive about his sexuality, even with friends. He spoke about an early relationship with a man named Guy, and about being out before fame, then retreating into privacy as Pee Wee became famous. That detail changes the whole character. Pee Wee's voice, food sounds, and playful rhythms were not just childish invention. Some were shaped by an adult love that the public never knew. This is not a story about scandal. It is a story about separation. Paul protected Pee Wee, and Pee Wee protected Paul. The character was bright, safe, ageless, and almost impossible to categorize. That made him powerful. It also made him lonely. Reubens passed away in 2023 after keeping his illness private. When the documentary arrived, the confession felt less like a revelation than a final permission slip. He let audiences meet the man behind the red bow tie, not as a punchline, but as a complicated artist who turned concealment into color, timing, and love for people who adored him. For older fans, that makes every cheerful doorway into the playhouse feel warmer, stranger, and far more human than ever before today, finally. Robert Reed. Robert Reed belongs near the top because he played the father America trusted most. As Mike Brady on The Brady Bunch, which ran from 1969 to 1974, he stood in the middle of a blended family and made every problem feel solvable. The children argued, the lesson arrived, and Mike Brady gave the house its moral center. Off camera, Reed carried a private burden that made that image harder to hold. Born John Robert Reitz Jr., Reed was a serious actor who often wanted the show to be sharper and more believable. He argued over scripts because he cared about truth, even while his own public life had to remain carefully managed. Co-stars later described the strain of a double life. Florence Henderson spoke with compassion about his unhappiness, and Barry Williams said Reed simply did not discuss that side of himself. The final detail is what makes his story so painful. Reed passed away in 1992 at 59. The public cause was cancer, but later reporting noted that his death certificate also listed HIV infection as a contributing condition. He did not make a public statement explaining his private life. A document spoke after he was gone. That is why this chapter lands with such force. Mike Brady was written as the ideal father, the man who could identify the problem and restore peace before the credits. Robert Reed was living in a world where his own truth could not be handled so neatly. For viewers who grew up with him, that contrast turns comfort television into something quietly heartbreaking and deeply human today. Paul Lynde. Paul Lynde stays high because no one made the hidden message sound sharper. On Bewitched, he was Uncle Arthur, mischievous and impossible to contain. On Hollywood Squares, from 1968 into the early 1980s, he became the acid-tongued center square, answering harmless questions with lines that seemed to arrive already double-edged. The audience laughed before it had time to ask why. Lynde was not simply flamboyant by accident. His timing, pauses, and sideways glances created a language network television could broadcast without naming. Later commentators and biographers described his comic brilliance as inseparable from the gay sensibility he could not openly discuss. That conflict gave the jokes their electricity. He was officially unspoken and completely obvious at the same time. His private life also carried lasting shadows. In 1965, actor James Bing Davidson fell from a hotel window in San Francisco after spending time in Lynde's room. Reports cleared Lynde of wrongdoing, but the incident followed him in public memory. Friends later suggested that the daily pressure of hiding, performing, and being laughed at without being fully known deepened his bitterness. Lynde passed away in 1982 at only 55 after friends became concerned when he missed a gathering. There was no grand public confession. There was just the work, the raised eyebrow, the perfect pause, the line that made America laugh while carrying more truth than the culture admitted. Watching him now, it feels less like he was hiding. He was telling us brilliantly in code all along. That is why his jokes still feel modern, brave, and almost dangerously honest when replayed for older viewers. Wally Cox. Wally Cox gives this story one of its most haunting images because his television presence was so gentle. Audiences knew him from Mr. Peepers, from Hollywood Squares, and as the voice of underdog. He seemed mild, shy, and almost apologetic, the kind of performer viewers let into the living room without suspicion. Yet the after-story tied to him is anything but ordinary. Cox's closest famous friend was Marlon Brando. They had known each other since youth, and Brando spoke openly about loving him in language that was emotional, intense, and difficult to reduce to ordinary Hollywood friendship. Brando reportedly said that if Cox had been a woman, he would have married him. Whether viewers call that romance, devotion, or a bond, no label can fully hold. The feeling was unmistakable. Cox passed away in 1973 at only 48 after a heart attack. What happened afterward became the lasting image. Reports described Brando keeping Cox's ashes for years, speaking to them, and refusing to release the connection. After Brando passed away in 2004, reports about the scattering of Brando's ashes in Death Valley noted that Wally Cox's ashes were included there too. Cox himself never publicly explained the nature of the relationship, and the respectful script should not pretend certainty where none exists. But the emotional fact remains powerful. The quiet comic the public remembered as harmless became, for one of the most famous actors alive, someone impossible to let go. That silence may say more than any interview ever could. And for viewers, it turns softness into mystery, tenderness, and an unexpectedly enduring final echo. Dick Sargent. Dick Sargent is the exception that proves how unforgiving the old system was. He is not here because he waited until his final breath to speak. He is here because he waited until the final stretch of his life to say publicly what television had trained him to hide. For older viewers, that difference matters. Sargent is best remembered as the second Darren Stevens on Bewitched, replacing Dick York in 1969. On paper, Darren was the most ordinary husband imaginable, suburban, practical, and always trying to keep magic from upsetting the neighborhood. But seen now, his repeated plea for Samantha to act normal has a deeper ring. It sounds like the rule many performers were forced to live under. In 1991, on National Coming Out Day, Sargent publicly came out as gay. He said concern for young gay people, especially those facing despair, helped motivate him. He even joked that he had become a retroactive role model, a phrase both funny and sad because it admits how late honesty had arrived. Sargent used that late openness for activism, pride events, and HIV and AIDS causes. He also clarified that he was HIV negative while dealing with prostate cancer. He passed away in 1994 at 64, only about 3 years after that public declaration. That is the ache of his chapter. He did get to speak for himself, unlike many others. But the career-defining years had already passed. His truth arrived in time to help others, but far too late to free the young actor he had once been inside. That remains deeply moving today for fans. Hayden Rorke. Hayden Rorke brings a softer, more elegant kind of reveal. To generations of viewers, he was Dr. Alfred Bellows on I Dream of Jeannie, the NASA psychiatrist who always suspected something impossible was happening around Major Nelson. Bellows watched, doubted, questioned, and nearly discovered the truth every week. The comedy was that he was right, but never quite right enough. Rorke was born William Henry Rorke in Brooklyn in 1910 and built a long stage and screen career before Jeannie made him a household face. The important correction is his name and his partner's name, Hayden Rorke, not Roar, and Justus Addis, not Eustace Addis. Later accounts, including Barbara Eden's memoir, described Rorke as gay and said he lived for many years in Studio City with Addis, a television director. That changes the emotional color of the role. Rorke's life does not read primarily as panic or tabloid exposure. It reads like a private world that his co-workers understood, but the public was never invited to enter. He passed away in 1987 at 76, years after Addis had passed away in 1979. So Dr. Bellows now feels richer than the original joke. He spent years playing a man trying to uncover someone else's secret, while his own truth remained just outside the television frame. The reveal came later, not as disgrace, but as tenderness. The stern doctor had quietly lived his own impossible story with someone he loved. For older fans of classic sitcoms, that knowledge does not ruin the laughter. It deepens it, giving every suspicious glance a gentler second life today, on screen again. James Coco. James Coco makes a powerful late chapter because he was honored for playing what his own public life could not comfortably explain. He was not marketed as a sitcom father or a children's icon. He was a character actor of rare warmth and precision, memorable in Murder by Death, The Muppets Take Manhattan, Saint Elsewhere, Who's the Boss, and the Neil Simon film Only When I Laugh. That last title gives his story its central irony. Coco received an Academy Award nomination for playing Jimmy Perino, a flamboyant gay actor. The performance could be applauded, reviewed, nominated, and remembered. Yet Coco himself did not live in an era that made public openness simple or safe. Later, queer reference sources and biographical writing placed him within New York's gay theater world, including Greenwich Village circles that understood more than the entertainment press usually printed. The script should stay respectful here. Coco did not leave behind the kind of on-camera statement Paul Reubens did, and his private life should not be turned into a tabloid claim. What matters is the gap between artistic permission and personal permission. Audiences could praise him for embodying a truth on screen, while the matching conversation around his own life remained delayed. Coco passed away in Manhattan in 1987 at 56 after a heart attack. His final television work was still reaching viewers, and Who's the Boss later honored him. That makes his ending quietly moving. He gave comedy, tenderness, and recognition to other people's stories. Only later did the fuller frame around his own become easier for audiences to see clearly. Some men told the truth in interviews. Others left it in papers, memoirs, friendships, or performances that now sound different. Which story stays with you most? The one finally spoken aloud, or the one history had to piece together? Comment your answer. Share this with someone who remembers these shows, and subscribe for more respectful, untold stories from the television years America still carries in its heart and memory forever.